region. With that said, let's just jump right in. The country that we're starting off with at number 10 is Lebanon. Lebanon is a country in the northern Arabian Peninsula, and it's located at the crossroads of Asia and Europe, and it gave birth to early kingdoms and has been at the center of religious and political disturbances throughout history. Signs of civilization in Lebanon date back more than 7,000 years, and the land eventually came under the rule of the Roman Empire and then the Ottoman Empire. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Lebanon eventually gained independence in the year 1943. 68% of Lebanese people identify as Muslim, and 32% of those being Sunni Muslim and 31% of them being Shia Muslims, as well as other smaller Islamic branches make up a smaller percentage. You'll also find another 32% of the population being Christian. The country at number 9 is the country of Oman. It is the oldest independent state in the Arab world. Oman is located in the southeast corner of the Arabian Peninsula, and the country was always of interest to foreign powers due to its position for Indian Ocean trade. Controlled by the Portuguese in the 1500s and later the Persians, the country eventually formed close ties with Britain in the late 19th century, but never came under its power though, so never was a colony. Oman is a high-income country that earns 84% of its revenue from oil resources, and Oman is a Muslim country, but around 13% of the population is Hindu. Qatar is located on a small desert peninsula that extends northward into the Persian/Arab Gulf. It's Persian Gulf or Arab Gulf depending on who you ask, but either way, Qatar fell under the Islamic Caliphate after the rise of Islam in the year 628 AD, and was afterwards ruled by several different powers. Since the mid-1800s, the country has been ruled by the Al Thani family, and Qatar became an independent state in the year 1971. Now, it's a country that's rich in oil and natural gas. Qatar is one of the wealthiest countries in the entire world, and most citizens are Sunni Muslims, and almost the remaining rest of the citizens are Shia Muslims. Next up, let's look at Turkey. Turkey has been home to all three great Abrahamic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. 99% of Turkey's people today are Muslim. And the capital city, Istanbul, is also the historic location of Constantinople and still has active Orthodox churches. Roman Catholic churches are also there, as well as Protestant churches. And Turkey's Jewish community has some roots there too. Like, for example, St. Paul was born into a Jewish family in the Roman city of Tarsus on Turkey's eastern Mediterranean coast. From there, we look at the next religious country by perception. We have Jordan. Jordan is a small country located on ancient biblical land, and the country is one of the most liberal in the region. Muslims make up 97.1% of the population, predominantly Sunni Muslims, and Christianity makes up 2.1%, and the majority of those are Greek Orthodox Christian. Jordan was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire until 1918, and later it was a mandate of the United Kingdom, and then Jordan became an independent kingdom in the year 1946. The country of Jordan lost the West Bank and East Jerusalem to Israel in the War of 1967. Years later, the country joined Egypt and became one of the two Arab nations to make a peace deal with Israel. Now, halfway in at number 5, we have Egypt. The vast majority of Egyptians, 90% to be exact, identify as Muslim, most of them being of the Sunni branch. 9% identify as Coptic Orthodox Christian, and the other remaining 1% identify with other denominations and religion. Egypt, of course, is one of the world's earliest and greatest civilizations. Its location at the northeast corner of Africa, bordering the Mediterranean Sea, has really made it a cultural and trading center. And Arab and Islamic traditions shape the country's culture, but also African, Mediterranean, and Western elements influence the country. Moving on to number 4, United Arab Emirates. According to the CIA fact book, 76% of the population of the country are Muslims. Christians are the largest minority community, making up 9% of the country's population. Followers of other religions make up the other 15% of the population, and Hindus and Buddhists have the highest following among other religions in the country. The country is made up of a federation of monarchies where the legal system is really a mix of civil as well as Islamic law. And the United Arab Emirates is very well known for its two largest cities, Dubai, of course, and Abu Dhabi. And these two cities bring in millions of tourists every single year. Up next, we have India, the birthplace of Hinduism and Buddhism. It's also the world's second most populous nation after China. For many years, India faced attacks from the north by the Turks, Arabs, Persians, and others. And by the 19th century, it was Great Britain that became the dominant power of the Indian subcontinent. India eventually gained its independence in the year 1947, and that is a very big day in history. While 94% of the world's Hindus live in India, there are also a large population of Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, and Buddhists, as well as Jains living in India. Number 2 is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a massive country. It's the giant of the Middle East, with the vast majority of the land and wealth of the Arabian Peninsula falling within its borders. Millions of devout Muslims from around the world participate in the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca each year, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is the birthplace of the Muslim prophet Muhammad, and there's a strong religious identity that fills the country, with the majority religion being Sunni Islam. Islamic Sharia law governs all aspects of life. But surprisingly, Saudi Arabia, you'll find a lot of foreign workers living there from different countries who are non-Muslims. You'll find a lot of Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and even Sikhs. Now, topping this list at number 1 when it comes to religiosity by perception, we have the nation of Israel. Israel is the only Jewish nation in the world, and it's a small country on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. It is a land that has historic biblical roots, and it's often referred to as the Holy Land. For its relatively small size, the country has really played a massive role in global affairs. The country has a strong economy, it has significant landmarks, and it's a place that is actually recognized by several religions. Well, at least the landmarks within the country. But because the land is disputed, they have run into a lot of trouble and disputes with their Arab neighbors. Either way though, 81% of Israelis are Jewish, while the remainder are mostly ethnically Arab and religiously Muslim, which is about 14%. And Christianity makes up 2%, as well as Druze makes up 2%. There you have it, guys. That wraps up this episode on 10 of the most religious countries in the world. But remember, this was based on perception of religiosity. And at number 10, we have the country of Myanmar. So check it out. This country is on the list since the year 1999, when it was still known as Burma. Myanmar captured the world's attention in 2017 because of the conflicts between the forces of government and the country's minority Rohingya Muslims. The police attacked the Rakhine state of Rohingya people when they attacked police offices as well as an army base in 2017. This conflict resulted in the fleeing of 70,000 people to Bangladesh as refugees and around 23,000 people displaced internally in Myanmar. People say that the government is involved in an ethnic cleansing operation against the Rohingya people. Moving on to number 9, we have the country of China. China allows normal religious activities, but the thing is, it has never really told us what it means by normal, okay? So although the government officially recognizes Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Catholic and Protestant belief systems of Christianity? Well, there have been widespread reports of attacks on other sects, and notably the non-violent Falun Gong and Uyghur Muslims. According to the 2016 report by the State Department, there have been complaints that the government of China is involved in physical abuse, detention, arrest, and harassment of both registered and unregistered people. There have been stories about a disappeared Catholic priest and the burying of a pastor and his wife while they were still alive. That's pretty creepy. Now, the takeover of Tibet has also aroused an issue of religious persecution in China. From there, let's look at the country of Eritrea at number 8. Now, the situation over in Eritrea was summed up in a report by the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, or the USCIRF for short, and this is what the report had to say. And I quote, "The Eritrean government continues to restrict the freedom of religion for unregistered and, in some cases, registered religious communities. Torture or other ill treatment of religious prisoners, arbitrary arrests and detentions without charges, and prolonged ban on public religious activities of unregistered religious groups, and interference in the internal affairs of registered religious groups are examples of systematic, ongoing, and egregious religious freedom violation. The situation is especially dire for unregistered evangelical, Pentecostal, and Jehovah's Witnesses." End quote. All right, from there we look at Iran. So according to the report of the USCIRF, it says that Iran has a systematic campaign against religious freedom through the arrest and harassment of Baha'is, as well as Christian converts, Sunni Muslims, and even some Shia Muslims. They're not free from this. So since the election of President Hassan Rouhani in 2013, the anti-Semitic proclamations, which decreased the number of people who are not given the right to their religious freedoms, has really increased. Now, next up at number 6, you guys, I'm sure, expected North Korea to be in this list. No one knows exactly what is going on really in North Korea, also known as the Hermit Kingdom. But according to the report of the USCIRF, North Korea profoundly suppresses religious freedom. Now, the citizens are compelled to worship the leader of the state, Kim Jong-un, and people in North Korea practice their religion secretly because they definitely can't be doing that in public. Now, at number 5, let's look at Sudan. The state of Sudan operated under Sharia law, and now this law enforces hudud penalties on Muslims and non-Muslims. And by the way, hudud is an Arabic word meaning borders, boundaries, and limits. The reports of the USCIRF say that Sudan opposes the establishment of any community of Christianity, and it also claims that the state arrests Christian leaders. From there, at number 4, we move to Saudi Arabia. The government of Saudi Arabia promotes Sunni Islam. Most people in the world, I'm sure by now, know this. Now, even if other sects of Muslims go there, their government really cut back the power of its Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice due to its Vision 2030 campaign for modernization of the country. Also, the country does prohibit any public practice of other religions other than Islam. The government sees the public practice as having an intention to convert other people, and they don't want anybody to be converted to anything else other than Islam. However, the Saudi Arabian authorities, they do allow private practices of religions other than Islam. Next up at number 3, Tajikistan. Alright, Tajikistan is a secular state, but there have been some hardships, particularly for Muslims, Protestants, and Jehovah's Witnesses, and people have been imprisoned on fake cases just because of their religious identity. Yeah, it gets pretty bad sometimes. There have been reports in the country that the police raids, surveillance, as well as they force banning against religious and non-registered organizations in the country. Now, the religious activities in the country are controlled by the Committee of Religious Affairs of the government. Now, since the year 2016, Tajikistan has been designated as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 for having engaged in or tolerated particularly severe violations of people's religious freedom. From there, the country at number 2 is Turkmenistan. This country also controls all of its religious activities. Now, what they do is they require religious groups to register and meet with the government. The Constitution does provide for freedom of religion, and it does not establish a state religion at all. However, the government severely restricts all religious expression except for 2 registered groups, Sunni Muslims and the Russian Orthodox Church. The USCIRF calls it an intrusive standard, and the registration, on the other hand, does not give you any guarantee of no harm. There are reports of torture and people being jailed because they are Muslim or, Russian, Christian. Now, from there, we move on to Uzbekistan at number 1. In 2016, there were around 13,500 religious and political prisoners in the country. Now, the state forces people to adhere to a particular version of Islam. Now, the members of Protestant Christian denominations were frequently harassed through raids and seizures of religious literature. Uzbek society generally tolerates Christian churches as long as they do not attempt to convert ethnic Uzbek. The country at number 10 is Belgium. Let's take a look to see what Belgium has to offer. Why is it such a peaceful country? Well, judging by the Global Peace Index, the country of Belgium is one of the best places to live in all of Europe, as well as on the planet in general. It's located in the heart of Europe, and it's a very beautiful country, and it's home to some very special places like Brussels. And of course, that's the capital of Belgium. It's also home to the European Union as well as NATO. And now Belgium, it has a lot of medieval cities, beautiful town halls, majestic castles, and it's just a captivating, naturally beautiful place to be in. Really contributes to the peaceful vibe of the country. Of course, we have to mention Sweden. They come in at number 9. So Sweden, of course, is located in the far north of Europe, and Sweden is one of the most beautiful Scandinavian countries on the planet. The country has very low levels of robbery. Only 9,000 of them happen per year. Compared to the United States, that number is at 350,000 plus. There's also very high standards of living as well as generous parenting leave for moms and dads. About 15 months they can take off. Plus they have a great welfare system. And of course that justifies why it's ranked so high as one of the peaceful countries in the world. Canada is up next at number 8. So Canada has one of the best standards of living in the entire world. Now, if you've ever been to places like Toronto, even to Niagara Falls, you'll see why Canada is so awesome. It's clean, it's very diverse, there's a lot of gorgeous people that live in Canada. So with the peaceful country that Canada is, you'll also find beautiful landscapes that make it a great place to live, as well as for photography and people that just love exploring nature. People are also very polite in Canada. Like, they will literally apologize to you if you accidentally walk into them and bump them on the street. That's a true fact. Moving on now to number 7, we have Finland. Finland is considered one of the most peaceful countries and most livable countries on the planet. It has one of the best education systems in the world, and our children are given a lot of recesses. And I guess because of that, that's why they have very low rates of ADHD. There's practically no corruption in the country, and you're not gonna find a lot of class distinction in the country as well. People are just sort of seen as equal. And it also scores really high on gender equality as well. Japan comes in at number 6 in this episode. So of course, Japan is one of the most fascinating countries culturally and traditionally in the entire world. It's home to a lot of things. It also has one of the best economies in the world. Japan is also considered the happiest country in all of Asia. Japan is very safe in many aspects. You find that it has a low crime rate as well as no major conflicts with any of its neighboring countries. You'll also find great food, a lot of polite people, as well as a stellar transportation system. These guys, the Japanese, they've definitely built a peaceful and technologically advanced country within a relatively short period of time, despite, their history. With that said, we're moving on to the country at number 5. Switzerland. See what they got going on. There are very low levels of crimes in Switzerland. It's located in the heart of the European Union. Switzerland is a naturally beautiful, fascinating place as well. The country is known for its neutral behavior in regional as well as international global political issues. The country also has a strong diplomatic relation with many other countries around the world, and the authorities have also invested heavily in their people in providing them with great education as well as healthcare services and, a lot of employment benefits. Coming up next, we have the country of Austria. Now, we don't hear about this country too much, but it's a small landlocked country in South Central Europe. And Austria has also moved up on the list when it comes to being one of the most peaceful countries in the world. And that has a lot to do with its stance on certain international political issues. Austria is doing very well. There's no austerity, and it's not being blamed like a lot of its neighboring countries for not saving Europe. But either way, outside of that, Austria definitely has earned its spot on the list of most peaceful countries in the world. New Zealand is up next. Now, it has a very small percentage of its population that's in prison. It has limited military capability, and of course, it has strong relations with Australia. New Zealand is also one of the most unpolluted countries in the entire planet, and New Zealanders get a very generous leave benefits so that they have a lot of time to enjoy the landscapes as well as other attractions that the country has to offer. Now, this episode would not be complete if I didn't mention the country of Denmark. We've talked a lot about this country here on FTD Facts, but Denmark holds the second place in this episode as the most peaceful country in the world. So similar to New Zealand, Denmark and the rest of the North European countries consistently rank as the best when it comes to safety. Denmark is also the most peaceful nation on the continent of Europe. Taxation is high, but the money, of course, is well spent on making the Danish lifestyle really relaxed, well organized, and just all around great. But with that all said, it was not enough to come in at number 1 as the most peaceful country. That goes to Iceland. Apart from its crazy icy scenery, it's reported that Iceland has a 100% literacy rate and has a population of over 300,000 people. So of course, it's one of the most educated countries in the world. Icelanders are also known to be very tolerant towards minorities. So that of course is a huge plus. And also one of the best things that you'll find about Iceland is that its murder rates are very low. Only 1.8 per 100,000 of its population are murdered every single year. Of course, murders are practically non-existent. So no doubt that this country is a really safe place to live and overall a peaceful country. That's why it's number 1 in this episode.